You're listening to the new media. You're listening to Mitchell Talks. Learn more at MitchellTalks.com and follow me, Scott Mitchell, on Twitter at Mitchell Talks.
Bret Dickerson is the founder of Oklahoma City Free Press. Nobody is covering Oklahoma City Public School like you.
Thanks, Scott.
You want to give us some idea of, let's just pretend I just walked off of a boat. I got here. It's very difficult to understand what's going on out there. So take me through like I'm 7 years old.
Well, you step on an elevator, you say, hey, what the heck is Oklahoma City Free Press? And I say, well, first of all, you can go to our website, freepressokc.com. What we are is local, independent, online news. Lion, I use that sometimes as a hashtag. Local, independent, online news avoids all of the problems with paper publication. Some of our legacy papers, believe me, if they could stop running their printing presses tomorrow and get by with it, they would. It's just that their readers would not accept that. But paper and publishing with paper has become so prohibitive money-wise that I saw where somebody at the New York Times said that in the next 20 years, paper is going to completely go away as a publication.
You think it'll take that long?
I think that's he's kind of hedging his bets probably by saying 20 years. It's probably more like 10. So Free Press covers, I like to say Free Press covers street level news in Oklahoma City. I had a reporter as a friend of mine from one of the legacy publications say to me, Brett, we used to have guys doing what you're doing, and we don't have them doing that anymore. You're doing what we used to have guys doing, and so that's what we do. We are local, a local publication. We're locally owned, and I do push that a lot because ownership does matter. Where the owner lives. Whether the owner is invested in the community or not, that really does matter. And I live in this city. I've lived in this city for a long time. I'm not somebody that just parachuted in here. I'm going to spend 9 months hoping to move on to another market somewhere or something like that. I live here, so I tell people I don't do hit and run journalism, because eventually everybody figures out they need to run away from you. And I can't afford to have people run away from me. I live in this city. I live here. This is my city. And I want people running toward me, not away from me.
How have you become – you're the point man for Oklahoma City Public Schools. You cover it. There's not anybody who covers it as well as you.
Thanks, Scott.
Let's not even quibble about this. You cover it better than anybody, and it's such an important story, such an incredibly important story. But it gets neglected a lot to other stuff that's more sensational.
Right.
95% free and reduced lunch. This is a school system that's been failing for a very long time.
Right.
And you just shudder thinking about what our pipeline is from Oklahoma City Public Schools to wherever. Let's be clear about that. But there is a crisis of confidence there. Forget about the state for just a moment. Just think about Oklahoma City Public Schools. And it eats superintendents alive. Why is that?
Well, first of all, I think certain forces here in the city want people to just pay all of their attention to how many superintendents we've had in the last so many years. That's been kind of a formula. You see that around in different publications. I don't, as if that's the issue. That's not the issue. The issue is not that we keep running superintendents off. The issue is that we haven't been able to really develop this cadre of leaders who will compete with each other for the superintendency. We've had this approach that we're just going to go out there and we're going to do a nationwide search for the best talent. Well, we've actually tried that several times. It has worked once or twice in the past 20 years. It more often than not, it has not worked. A school system is a very unique thing. And anytime somebody says, let's run Oklahoma City schools like a business, you know what? We tried that. When Cliff Hudson was the chair of the school board, and they hired Dave Lopez, when they hired Dave Lopez to be the superintendent, another businessman. You have businessman at a well-known, successful businessman as chair of the school board, hiring a businessman to be a superintendent. That didn't work either. So we've already tried that. We've been there. We've done that. And so what we've not tried in a very long time in Oklahoma City schools is to develop this core of people from the inside who start out as teachers and then become assistant principals and then become principals and then move up into administration and eventually end up in the superintendency. Now, we have this ideology that says, oh, we don't want educrats running this thing. Well, that's it. What we're seeing really, and it's strange sounding to me to hear the very people who have said those kinds of things trying to dismantle the school systems to turn around and then complain that we have instability in the school system. The very people who've been working toward instability in the school system now are criticizing the school system for being unstable. So the first thing about that is to just to realize we have to actually create stability. And it's not a matter of just going out there and just grabbing talent and thinking, okay, now we got a good superintendent in here, they're going to fix everything. The bigger the school system is, the more institutional knowledge people have to keep it on the rails. And when you have a new superintendent, you drop in from the top, then their first impulse is to bring other people with them who are just as unfamiliar with the school district as they are, which means then that they see every knowledgeable principal as a threat. Now, the untold story, I've told it, several times when I focus on their attempted firing of Sue Starr, a very experienced black beloved principal at Northeast High School, was walked out of the building in front of her students. And they started proceedings to fire her. And we have several stories in Free Press. You can go to freepressokc.com and look up Sue Starr. By the way, we have a really good search function on there too. So you can just go in there and just type in Starr, Starr, and it'll show you all the stories that we've done about this. But when you have an administration that considers experienced principals who know the parents, they see those parents every day. The building principals should be seen as the best resource, and the more popular they are, the better the resource they are. But in past several administrations, because these are people that just dropped in from the outside, they see the best principals as threats to them. And so that is the really deeper problem there. And so what happens is then you have this big bind that happens. If you take a look at school districts that promote from within, where the superintendent started out in the classroom and worked their way up, you can say, wow, they're just a bureaucrat. This is just bureaucratic stuff like this. But that's just ideology speaking. It's not reality speaking. In reality, communities depend upon continuity in their school district. They get upset when there's not continuity. And that's the real upset that I see, the legitimate upset in the community about the school district rotating superintendents through. There's a lack of stability. Well, you don't get stability by just promoting further instability. So when you start unwinding the school district by running off all the principals that know what they're talking about, that's the problem. That's the problem right there. It's not, hey, we shouldn't, we ought to just fall in line. Everybody shut up. Don't criticize the superintendent, which is basically what we've been hearing for the last couple of years.
There's no there's no continuity of the culture. Mm-hmm. So I see what you're saying. I'm going to go back to Rob New. Guy comes in, it's 6 months before he knows where the bathroom is. All right?
Right.
Then you have somebody else that comes in, another 6 months. Mm-hmm. It's one of the issues we see with term limits. I mean,
Exactly.
It's the nice way of saying a lot of rookies having to do OJT to learn these things.
Yeah.
So you have the inability to bring from within. Can you just imagine businesses that don't have a culture to promote from within?
Yeah. And
like
some businesses
sports or something like that.
Well, the businesses that do that are the ones that are just depending on making money by just tearing things down and rebuilding them again and again. And some companies make a lot of money doing that, but they don't create sustainable value at all. And other companies, on the other hand, have a policy that they're going to look inside the company first when they search for somebody to fill a new opening. There's some company cultures are that if you already know this company, you know what the problems are too, And what happens is when you parachute somebody in, and especially in a complex school system like Oklahoma City schools, where you have multiple cultures, you have a long history of this school district maintaining legal segregation and then quiet segregation even after that. What happens is when you just drop somebody in from the outside is that they are threatened by people who do know where the restroom is, figuratively speaking. They know what the problems are. But if you come in and you've already told the board, I know what the problems are, you hire me, I know what the problems are here, and you're wrong, then you're going to be trying to find a way to push out that principal who's saying, you know what, I've been here for 20 years. I've been in this district for 20 years, and we're on the wrong track on this idea here about what you think is wrong. And the best leader is going to hear that and value that. That's what the best leaders do. Weak leaders say, everybody shut up, don't oppose me, or we're going to walk you out of the building in front of your students. I was in I taught high school for 16 years before, I took early retirement so I could write more. I was a freelance writer, and then I started Free Press. And what I saw again and again is that when schools come unraveled or school districts come unraveled, it takes a long time to reassemble that. And it takes somebody who really, really comes in not with concepts, but with 2 ears, 2 eyes, really listening, really watching, really paying attention.
My impulse is to ask what happened with Aurora Laura, and then ask what happened with Rob New, and then ask what happened with Dave Lopez, who left according to his schedule. But let me do that another time. Most common question I have is what can we do? I mean, the job appears to each superintendents. I know a lot of smart people, and they just are pulling their hair out. They don't really know what to do. You watch this more than anybody. And from your observation, what has to be done? Because there isn't a culture of promotion within. My guess is it's not going to be somebody from inside. Maybe I'm wrong, but What's next?
Well, what I see going on with this board, this is a really very different board now. Just in terms of the people who are on the board, just the turnover that's happened through elections, just in the past 2 election cycles. And even the few people who have been on the board have kind of changed a lot of their thinking. So this board is probably more unified than any board that we've seen in a long time in Oklahoma City Public Schools. It used to be just kind of, a collection of 8 people that just drove in, walked in, sat down, and started talking, without interacting. But there's a lot more interaction now on the board, and there are some things that the board really sees that need to happen, no matter who the superintendent is, and they're accepting responsibility for getting that going. Now, what I'm also hearing is that the board really sees the problems that creates by just dropping people in from the outside. This is the first time that I've ever seen the board really, quietly considering that, maybe we do have some people on the inside here. Maybe we do have some people with institutional memory who really can do this better. And Tyler Bridges is a guy that I kind of watch. He's a great example of a really smart, small rural school principal out in Western Oklahoma. He really knows exactly what he's talking about all the time. He's a reader, and he was the first one that I ever saw point out after all this talk. Bob Hammock, former board member, comes out and says the same thing basically that former chair Lynn Harden once said. Really we need 3 school districts here. Well, that. Boy, just that suggestion right there says, well, let's just have people on the south side have their own district. Let's let people on the east side have their own district. And what they don't go on and say is implied is, then let's let the white folks on the north side of the city have their own school district too. That I don't know anybody who thinks that that's a good idea except for those 2 people. But that's not the answer. Bridges pointed out that Oklahoma City Schools is not even in the top 100 of the largest school districts in the United States. We just kind of talk like, oh, this is impossibly big. This is an impossibly big school district. We got close to 50,000 kids. Well, when the school district was doing well, they had close to 70,000 kids in the school district in Oklahoma City Public Schools. When people said, hey, this is a good school district, everything's going fine. That was back before, enforced busing. It was before the school board stalled out. Tulsa Public Schools actually just turned around and faced their own segregation, did something about it. Oklahoma City Schools tried to fight it and ended up in court with it and things like that. That's really when the district started coming unraveled, way back in the 60s. But in the 1950s and early 60s, school district had 70,000 kids. Now, if the problem is size, why wasn't anybody panicked back then? We actually have 30,000 kids less now than we did back then. So there's just a lot of stuff that I'm hearing. It just doesn't make any sense. When you look at history, look at the larger picture, Oklahoma City Schools not even in the top 100 of the largest school districts in the United States. But people act like, oh my God, this is the biggest school district in the whole United States. Nobody can run it. Nobody can possibly manage this whole thing. That doesn't add up. It just doesn't.
Why that narrative? What is the narrative? How did it get to be there? Because I hear it all the time.
I know. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times, public narratives, nobody controls a public narrative. You know that, I know that. Narratives take off and have a life of their own. And sometimes it's because quietly somebody's in the background promoting it. Think tanks a lot of times promote certain lines of thinking. But, other times it's just whoever's got the loudest megaphone, whoever has the volume turned up on their megaphone the most tends to kind of shift that narrative around sometimes. And I just think that you have some leaders in this community who have mistakenly believed that it's possible to run a school district just like the corporations they're running. And my question is, how many times do we need to be proven wrong about that before we'll say, okay, we're wrong about that? Well, some people are never going to say they're wrong about anything, and those are the people who are still saying the same thing. And You can't, a school district, a public school district is not a business. Businesses go broke and collapse and liquidate all of their property, blah, 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 every day. And nobody panics about that. But when a school district falls apart, that's a problem. That's a social problem of the community. And that's where I'm seeing the concern. There are like two things that I'm hearing. I'm hearing a kind of a feeble, kind of grasping narrative trying to figure it out. But the deeper concern in the community is we need our school district to succeed, and
everybody's saying that.
That doesn't have, that's the feeling behind what's being said. People are just kind of grasping at things out here trying to figure it out. But the feeling is it's not right to have our central core school district not working right. That's the feeling that I'm sensing from parents. When I talk to different parent groups and whatever. One thing that has happened with the last administration is that a number of parents felt like they just weren't heard. So they turn to people who will listen. I have quite a few sources now as a result of that. Parents as well as teachers and other people, sources who feed things to me, because they turn to free press because they know that I'm not owned by anybody. I'm completely independent. I'm not trying to help any particular group in the city. I'm out there doing my best to report the news. Sometimes I don't always do as good a job as I think I could. Sometimes I keep trying to get better, but I'm not out there to just defend a certain group, either quietly or overtly. And so parents have kind of figured that out, and some other people in the district have figured that out. And so they can't just feed me a bunch of junk and I just puke it back out there again. That's not me. That's not free press. But it's, when you do that, when you get in the rumor business, then it's too easy for somebody to just use you, just to manipulate you to get their false narrative out there. We're not willing to do that. So, but what I've been hearing, if you have a superintendency and an administration where not only the superintendent, but everyone who works for the superintendent already knows the school district before day one in that job, that is an incredible asset. And what's happened is that many, too many principals, and especially principals of color, have been pushed out of this district in the last couple of years because they knew what the heartbeat of the community was, and that was a threat to administrators that parachuted in.
What is the racial makeup of Oklahoma City Public Schools?
I don't know. I don't know right now. I don't know the numbers on that enough to go on the record about it.
Is there do you think the racial makeup has anything to do with the amount of attentiveness people have to the district? Because there's pretty well known it's poor. We know that.
That's the real thing. It may surprise. The district had some studies, and they came out with the graduation rates by different ethnic group. And the assumption is that English language learners are going to have the lowest graduation rate. It's not. It's not. What do you think? What group would you guess in Oklahoma City Public Schools has had the lowest graduation rate in 2016?
I would guess Latinos.
White students. Poverty is the real issue. It isn't race. It isn't culture. It's poverty. 2 years ago, right here at camps where we're recording this, I sat next to a parent who was listening to where Oklahoma Watch had their listening thing, and they had Rob New in, brand new superintendent, come in here, and I sat next to a parent. And after it was over, I just turned and started talking to him, and he said, "You know what? This district, the real problem this district has is poverty, and that's a systemic problem, and there's going to be no quick fix on this." And that parent was exactly right. They're exactly right. The lowest ethnic group, the ethnic group that has the hardest time graduating are the district's white students. Now, that blows up all of the right-wing narratives about, black people don't value education, people of color don't value education, blah, blah, blah. No, the numbers just don't prove that out. It's poverty. The issue is poverty. And if you don't address the issues of poverty that kids bring to school with them, then nothing else matters. If a kid has a headache, because he hadn't anything to eat in 24 hours, if a kid, is like hiding in her closet all night because she's afraid of mom's boyfriend or whatever, just all of those things are what in 16 years, out of that 16 years, about 6 of those were in teaching in alternative schools. And I'm telling you, kids, if I were to go back and do it all over again, I would work harder to understand just how many challenges kids carry with them just as soon as they step onto school property every day. That have nothing to do with the school, has to do with where they came from and what's going on in their lives.
And they're hungry.
Yeah. And
big
messed
time
up.
Food insecurity here.
Messed up. I had a kid one time that just couldn't seem to think of anything, and when he moved out of his dad's house, the principal later told me this, something the principal should have told me at the time. Principal told me this later, that his dad smoked meth. Well, he was breathing meth in his house when he moved out. All of a sudden, I said, "Hey, so-and-so is getting a lot better now. He seems sharp on top of him." He said, "Well, he's not living with his dad anymore. His dad was smoking meth and he was breathing it, and so he was having the same effects of meth." So, and that was, let me just say this, that was not in Oklahoma City Public Schools. It was in one of our suburban school districts where I work. So if you have those problems in suburban school districts, then you're definitely going to have them in urban districts. And the complexity of problems that teachers have to face in the complexity of problems that students have to face in their own lives, and the complexity they bring to the classroom takes teachers, principals, administrators, and a superintendent who know the community and know that school district and know the issues of the school district. You can't fly somebody in here from someplace else, talented as they may be, and have them immediately have a gut sense of what the real issues are in our school district.
Help me get off the ledge here. Okay? So one of the things that I think that there's just not enough of is coverage. Can we talk a little journalism for just a moment?
Right.
How many reporters have some idea what's going on in Oklahoma City Public Schools? You don't have to name names, just number.
Well, I see.
Not the parachute in, but tomorrow house fire.
I think I see some reporters are there every time, just like I am at the school board meeting every time, and they report on a regular basis. That's their beat, But it's not a giant group of people. It's like, primarily for print purposes, for reading, not for broadcast. You've got broadcast and then you've got, visual media. And they're like 2 of us. When you're talking about visual, word-based media.
Uno, dos?
Huh?
2.
2, yeah. And then you've got, we've got about 3 local TV reporters who I see there often enough that I think they kind of have an idea. But in terms of depth, what they're really, the whole thing of TV is just chasing the next siren or fire truck or whatever, and you get into that chasing controversy loop, that TV news gets into often. And I don't blame the reporters for that. It's just the nature of that kind of broadcast journalism is just that well, not broadcast journalism, it's the nature of the broadcast business is to always, provide the next jolt. And so anytime there's a controversy, anytime somebody stands up and shouts in public comments in the board meeting, you're going to see a little clip of that and kind of a general statement about that. So it gives people the impression of instability and craziness when maybe it was like one guy got up there and everybody out in the audience is going, come on, clock, we've got a 3-minute clock. It's like, hurry up clock. Let's get this guy out of here so we can really hear from some people who really know what they're talking about. That's really the difference between people who really are committed to covering education, no matter what publication they work for. And some people really, seem to kind of know what's going on, and some don't. It helps that I was a public school teacher for 16 years. It makes a big difference. It gives me a start there. Gives me a head start that other people, I would hate to be a reporter trying, assigned to report, on Oklahoma City schools where I was, a sports guy 4 years ago or whatever. That's really unfair to the reporter, really, to throw somebody in there like that. But I think the people who are there are putting out an earnest effort. I certainly in no way would I say I'm the only earnest reporter there. That'd be, I'm not going to do that. I think they're earnest reporters there. It's just sometimes their situation makes it to where they have a hard time really kind of keeping up with what's going on,
Help us handicap moving forward. What should we be watching for people who are for education, want to see Oklahoma City Public Schools prosper? That the air being sucked out of journalism right now has to do with the state.
Right.
Has to do with the teacher pay raise, the budget, all those sorts of things.
Right.
So a lot less oxygen is left when we're dealing with Oklahoma City Public Schools crisis. What are we looking for in the next few weeks?
Well, I think for Oklahoma City schools especially, one of the critical things is when the state doesn't support public schools. Oklahoma City Public Schools had to grind down their operation. Some really critical programs. They just had to grind them completely down to nothing because of cuts from the state legislature. So the first thing is, if you're worried about Oklahoma City Public Schools, they're not some island floating out here in the Caribbean someplace. They're in a state that is infamous now for failing to support public education. We're busy protecting some of the wealthiest people in the state at the expense of public education. And so that's something everybody needs to watch. And so when it comes to the district itself, you can get on the district's website, okcps.org, and the general public can do a lot of looking around on there. It's a pretty good website. As far as school districts go, school districts are kind of famous for, having kind of 20-year-ago websites a lot of times. But OKCPS has a good website that, you can do a lot of research on the board members, just kind of look and see who the board members are. Oklahoma City Schools, board members, the only at-large member is the chair of the board. Everybody else represents a certain geographic district in the city, in the school district. So find out, get on their website, find out who your board member is, and start talking to them, to that board member. Just like, city council has wards and, has, different districts. different wards where you have a particular city councilor, who is over your area. That's the way Oklahoma City Public Schools is. I find a lot of people don't even know that. The board is just this kind of amorphous kind of thing floating around out there. And if you live in Oklahoma City metro, I live in the Village, which is a little 3.5 square mile city within a city, but we're inside of Oklahoma City Public Schools. So I have a school board member who represents me, and the kids in my neighborhood go to Oklahoma City Public Schools. So even if you live in like War Acres or Nichols Hills or the Village or someplace like that, you're War Acres, I think, is in Putnam City. I shouldn't have said that. But like, you've got these little cities within the city and whatever, they don't have their own school systems. They're either Putnam City or Oklahoma City Public Schools. So, and the way Oklahoma City Public Schools works is that they have these geographic districts that represent different parts of the city. So get on okcps.org, look up who your school board member is, look at the map, find out who your school board member is, and reach out to them. Volunteer, agree to be a trained volunteer at the school closest to you if you have the time. Some of our best board members, they already had a sense of the district and what the challenges are. First day they sat in the seat at the board because they were already active volunteers in Oklahoma City Public Schools. They were a volunteer at one building where they really get to know the teachers and the kids and all of the challenges there. So if you have time, volunteer, take the training, accept that you're not there to watch other people and make sure they're doing things right. You're not the inspector general. You're there to help out. You're there to really become a part of the process and see what the challenges of the schools are. What you'll also see when you do that, and this is the upside that never gets talked about. The narrative is very negative right now because there are certain forces and particular financial interest that have an interest in keeping Oklahoma City schools weak and fragmented. And what's going on is that every day there are teachers in Oklahoma City Public Schools who are doing their job, and they're doing a great job, and they are caring for kids, and they're educating kids, and they're principals and assistant principals who know the parents. There's hardly a principal in this school district now in Oklahoma City Public Schools that does not work the pickup line where parents pick up kids, and they have their best parent conferences are leaning in the window of a car talking to a waiting parent in those lines. We've got principals that are that good. They're good. They know what's going on, but hardly anybody values that. And so, the biggest thing is demand that people who are at the top value the people who are the most directly connected with the constituents, with the parents and the children.
I have to ask you about the interest. You say they're trying to keep the school district weak and fragmented. How much can you go into detail for listeners?
Well, I can't. No, I'm not going to. There might be a time that I publish stories in the future on that, but I can't.
Give us an idea of what you're talking about.
No.
Okay.
Not right now. There are quiet financial interests that see a unified administration in a school district that thinks of education first as a roadblock to what they want to see happen. And so that's all I'm going to say for now. Watch freepressokc.com.
I feel like you just Forrest Gumped me. That's all I got to say about that. Before we close, other things that Free Press is that you cover that we should be interested in.
Yeah, City Council. We cover City Council a lot. Other publications, some publications do a good job of that too. first and foremost, free press is not out there to just try to do what everybody else is doing. There are so many unoccupied news lanes in this city. It's really wrong. It isn't just stupid, but it's wrong for me to just jump in there and try to do just to compete with somebody else just for the sake of competition. Free press is covering one of the few English language publications that takes the South Side of Oklahoma City seriously and really reports on the culture of the South Side of Oklahoma City. That's really important to this city. That's like half the city, if not more. And so far, South Side of Oklahoma City has been disregarded in a lot of ways. And we don't disregard the South Side. We don't disregard Hispanic culture in the city. And it's when we cover the South Side, it's at street level, and it's with people who we know and people who know me. And we really dig in on that, and we get right in the middle of a story, and so cultures that are not being covered, and Oklahoma City Council, and Oklahoma City Public Schools, and that is a massive amount of reporting right there for a small outfit like us. So we need to get bigger. We need sponsors. And we need sponsors who want to work with us to do some smart placement on our site. Not crazy, display ads slapped all over the place. We want to do some really responsible, good relationships with sponsors. We need sponsors so we can hire more people to write, more people to report.
Last question. We're recording this the day after mayoral election. Mm-hmm. David Holt has been, no surprise here, he's the mayor-elect. So you cover city council.
Right.
David Holt, who understands the way the city works. He's been around for a long time around Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Your thoughts about Mayor-elect David Holt?
Well, and we can link that to what we've been talking about with Oklahoma City Public Schools. Downtown got in behind David Holt, as well as many people out in the city who haven't normally been interested in mayoral elections, because he's experienced, because he has experience in the past with city government. He was chief of staff for Mayor Mick Cornett for 5 years. So we value his experience. Last night when I was at the watch party, experience was the number one thing. If you go to freepressokc.com, you'll see my story from last night. Holt played up his experience and depth of knowledge of the city. Other people played that up too. But somehow, when it comes to Oklahoma City schools, we're supposed to have somebody in there that has no experience at all, has no institutional knowledge, no knowledge of the city at all. Somehow that's better, but we don't take that approach to a mayor, do we? Wonder why that is. So, there's that. The mayor's election really is a great way of shining a light on what's wrong with what our thinking has been in the last 25 or 30 years in Oklahoma City Public Schools about its own leadership.
You talk to David Holt very much about Oklahoma City Public Schools?
Well, I do some. I think he's I think he's done a good job of talking about it, even though he will be the first one to remind you that statutorily, he has nothing to do with the school district at all. You see some opinion work out there saying, well, the mayor ought to be able to appoint the school board, basically arguing that we have too much democracy. That's what you're arguing when you say that. Well, we have too much democracy. We need to centralize this thing. I don't hear Holt saying that. I do hear some of his supporters saying that. And but most of the city, they want school board members who they elect, and they want somebody who will listen to them. Whoever the mayor appoints is going to reflect what the mayor thinks, and that might fit great efficiency models, but it doesn't really develop support in the core of the community. And unless the mayor really focuses on choosing diverse people, which is what Holt has been saying that he's going to do. But I think I asked him about that last night. I talked to him about that a little bit because, he brought it up. And what he was saying was that even though he can't do anything about the school district statutorily, what he can do is to be a megaphone. He can, which is really the power of a mayor in a weak mayor system like Oklahoma City has. It's the mayor is the convener. He's not the boss. He's the convener. He's the bridge builder. And Holt seems to understand that really, really well, which is encouraging. It's encouraging about that. He has reached out to the South Side very much. You can read a story that I wrote from the last time he visited the Capitol Hill Civic Group over at Grill on the Hill. And he just came out and said openly, he said, I'm not running for mayor of downtown. I'm running for mayor of all of Oklahoma City. And he said that in a lot of cases, and I wanted to get him on the record about that too. So sometimes stories that I publish that seem kind of innocuous is like, yeah, whatever. I'm really kind of putting that in there for the record so that if there's a contrast later on, all I have to do is put a hot link in there and say, see where they said this earlier on. So, so I think Holt really believes what he's saying about those things, and I believe he's very earnest. And I also know that he has very deep experience in this city. And going back to Oklahoma City Public Schools, why do we somehow magically have some different standard for leadership in Oklahoma City Public Schools than we do as a standard for who we want for mayor?
Well, Bret Dickerson covers school and city council in Oklahoma City better than anybody, and really appreciate what you do.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you.
And people that want to know more about Oklahoma City Free Press, go to
freepressokc.com. On Twitter, we are Free Press OKC. On Instagram, Free Press OKC. If you want to search for us on Facebook, Oklahoma City Free Press.
Thanks so much for your time. I hope this is not a one-off. We get to talk with you a lot about these things that are going on in this community.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. Appreciate your work in this community to keep us all knit together, too.
Thanks so much. Brett Dickerson, live from camps.
You're listening to the new media, the Mitchell Talks Network. Learn more at mitchelltalks.com and follow me, Scott Mitchell, on Twitter @MitchellTalks.